Hey everybody, welcome to Redacted. Thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday. It is Taco Tuesday, not required, but bonus points if you are eating tacos tonight. We have a busy show to get to. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about, of course, war funding as it continues to funnel down the pipeline out of your tax dollars, out of your wallet into defense contractors around the world. We're going to talk about that.
We're also going to talk about immigrants in New York City. That's right. So illegal immigrants in New York City. We're also going to talk about.
That's wrong.
Oh, that's
yeah,
right.
I was thinking that's not quite right.
Well, we are going to talk about war funding because right tonight we have the vote going on in the Senate right now. So the senators right now are on the floor giving impassioned speeches over the past few hours. Chuck Grassley basically falling asleep. You have Mitch McConnell falling asleep on the floor of the Senate, telling all of us why we need to send another $100 billion to both Ukraine and also to Israel and Taiwan. Bernie Sanders making a really bizarre speech this afternoon, basically saying he doesn't want to give money to Israel or pieces of it, but he's totally fine like sending $61 billion to Ukraine. I mean, the craziness that is unfolding right now.
The acrobatics that you have to do when you were originally anti-war and then somehow are co-opted to support war. The mental acrobatics for that, it blows the mind. Either you realize people are dying or you don't. There's no nuance to this, but I guess that's what politicians are doing right now.
We're also going to talk about ISIS and super soldiers, which, there's all of these mainstream media stories floating around in the past few weeks about Syria and how there's all of these drug-induced super soldiers and that Syria has become a narco-state and we basically need to, infiltrate Syria, take over Syria, send American forces to Syria, sanction Syria because it's just filled with drugs and super soldiers, like super ISIS soldiers that are literally running at tanks because they're so hopped up on some sort of an ecstasy, this captogen, and they're running at tanks even after being shot. They're still going. It's like a chicken with their heads cut off. And so we need to invade them right now. We're going to have Vanessa Beeley is going to be joining us here, great journalist from Damascus, Syria, to talk about all of that.
Plus, we're going to talk about Princess Kate. Oh, yes, you're doing it. Don't switch off. We are going to talk about whether or not Princess Kate is A-okay because we have a little bit more proof that we're not sure is proof from the royal family. Weird moves. We're going to take a look. Again, because they are a tax-funded institution. They stand for a globalist agenda. We got to watch them. Also because they have pretty clothes. All of those things.
Yeah, we're going to talk about all of that tonight. And Brooks here in our chat on Rumble, our Rumble chat says, I don't think that Clayton and Natali ever read these comments. Brooks.
You just got nuked because we read your comment.
Brookers, I see you, and I also see you talking about cannabis as well, so I see you talking in there. And we watch our comments here live on Rumble and on YouTube every night and X, so we're streaming live on all of these platforms. Good to see the tens of thousands of you joining us for whatever platform you happen to be on tonight. So.
Right, and sometimes, though, Clayton's like, pay attention, because I get a little excited about what you say in the chat, so... we got work to do here, but we definitely want to interact with you. Also, to the commenter who said that she's looking at herself in the camera, yes. I'm looking at the comments.
She's a woman. Of course she's going to look at herself in the camera. Can we check? Are we, hold on a second. Are we good on YouTube? Because a bunch of people saying we're not on YouTube. Is that correct? Just making sure our stream
I see us.
We're good? We're good on YouTube? I can't click over because my mouse is otherwise occupied tonight. Yeah. All right, we're going to get all of those stories. We're going to get to this massive story out of Russia, which is Vladimir Putin threatening the United States. Hey, all of those weapons you're about to send us with your big Senate war funding that you're discussing right now, we will blow up all of them. We will strike them with a severity that you have not seen before. So good, let's send them more money. Let's send them more weapons that can all be destroyed like the last tranche of weapons that was sent. So we'll get to that in a second.
But first, we want to remind you that Redacted is brought to you by Indeed. They are the sponsor of our show today. And right now, our listeners will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility. But you need to go to our link. It's Indeed.com/redacted because Indeed is your matching and hiring program with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find your fast qualities and your best candidates fast. So head on over to Indeed.com/redacted. Again, Indeed.com/redacted right now and support our show by letting them know that you heard about them on this show because they are supporting independent media, and you can support them because of it. Again, that's indeed.com/redacted.
Well, Poland might have just lost its frickin' mind, which they have seemed to have been doing over the past few weeks, offering to bring nuclear weapons into Poland as a staging ground to strike Russia and China. Just when you thought the world couldn't get any crazier, Poland steps in and does the unthinkable, of course. We'll get back to Poland, though, in a second. But first, today, Russian President Vladimir Putin, speaking through his top military leaders, sent a clear message to Washington, D.C. We will bomb and destroy all of the weapons that you're planning to send in this new Ukrainian aid package that you're currently debating on the floor of the United States Senate, $61 billion plan. We will blow up all of them. General Shoigu reading a message from the government saying basically the moment these weapons cross the border, we will increase the attacks with an intensity and severity, the likes of which you haven't seen before. We know their location. We know the buildings where they will be stored. We know the routes they will enter into Ukraine, and we will destroy them. Like we've destroyed all of the other weapons. So just think about this, right? Just think about the madness of all of this, because as Lever News points out, the great unknown about the U.S. weapons deluge in Ukraine, Pentagon has no idea where these weapons are going. We have no idea. So just think about the madness of this, right? Just keep sending all of these weapons into Ukraine to be destroyed and make members of Congress wealthy, thanks from their big donors. That's how all of this works. It's an unbelievable thought, though, to know we're going to send 60. I just can't wrap my head around it. I mean, $61 billion of weapons. You're going to send Patriot systems. You're going to send ATACMS, which is their new savior that they're going to send now, which will be destroyed. So Russia knows exactly where all of these are.
In fact, earlier today, I saw a video from Al Jazeera of Russian soldiers towing a German Leopard tank to a museum. So remember about this time last year, the Germans were debating, should we send the Leopard tank? Should we not? I don't know. It's the right thing to do. Those are kind of intense. Maybe we shouldn't. Well, they did, in fact, send them. And Russia said, thank you. We're going to disable those and put them in a museum, and you will not be using them. So all of this for what?
Museum pieces. I guess they could use them for museum pieces. I'm just reminded of like the USS Liberty story. You think, oh, they don't know where all these weapons are going. Russia doesn't know where all of these things are going. If you go back to 1967 and the Israeli attack on the USS Liberty, the USS ship, and the collaboration, of course, with the CIA to make that happen. Turns out the Soviets knew everything. They knew exactly what was about to unfold. The plan to invade Syria. They were able to monitor the underground wireless communications on underground cables. They knew everything. They then even positioned their nuclear missiles aimed directly, basically, at Syria because, at Israel, because they knew exactly what was coming. This is 1967. They knew all of this. Go back 50 years. They had the intelligence. They knew well ahead of time. They know exactly where all of these things are going. They have the most advanced satellite technology to be able to zoom in. They know exactly where all of these things are going to go, and they will blow up all of them.
And given how crappy Ukraine's military is, do we really think they've got secret hiding spots that the Russians don't know about, that they're so good and furtive? No.
No, they don't know any of that. They know all of the details about all of these warehouses, and they're going to strike them with severity like we've never seen before.
I mean, they're hiding in plain sight. We saw yesterday what Colonel McGregor had said about how now their next big mission is just to dig trenches around the lines of the war barriers so that Russia can't go any further, and they're just going to hang out there for a while to keep this war going. Well, Russia can see them doing that. So they will know where they are. They will know where their equipment is. The plan is we have no plan, clearly.
And today we're learning more about the insane new weapons package that we're about to send to Ukraine. And every one of us watching right now should feel like you've been sold out by your politicians in Washington, because that's exactly what they did. They sold all of us out. Remember, this nearly $100 billion package would send $61 billion to Ukraine. And a few key senators are trying everything right now they can to try to stop it from happening. Senator Mike Lee, one of the most vocal adversaries of this. He does not want this to pass. He was up this morning before the sun was up at the Capitol calling on senators to kill this bill. Watch.
The $95 billion aid package with $61 billion for Ukraine and up to $9 billion for Hamas. It's not a done deal yet. 41 senators can stop it. Tell your senators, let's stop this thing. Let's kill the bill.
So he lays out the $95 billion doesn't have to pass. It takes only 41 senators to stop it. There are 49 Republicans in the Senate, he tweets. More than enough. Where do your senators stand? Please like and share if you agree that 41 Senate Republicans should unite to stop the $95 billion aid package. It doesn't seem likely because Mitch McConnell basically is tied his legacy to this. He's been an ardent supporter of funneling billions of dollars to Ukraine from the very beginning, and he seems really hell-bent on making sure that that happens here. So the Senate starts with 2 procedural votes today is what we saw unfolding. That could last 2 days before the full vote. The legislation then ties together 4 different bills. The House voted separately on Saturday, of course, and passed that piece of it. That would provide nearly $61 billion in aid for Ukraine, $26 billion for Israel, more than $8 billion for Taiwan. What's hilarious, though, is the first 3 bills are very similar to the package that the Senate passed earlier this year. And the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, had originally refused to bring any of it to the House floor.
That was before they got to him.
Before they got to him.
Injected him with whatever science fiction serum makes them do. I mean, he's basically under the imperious curse.
I guess. I mean, that's all it took. I guess he flew into Israel and they just did whatever they do. And then suddenly now he's like fully on board with this, because the other piece of this bill that now he's fully supportive of is the TikTok piece of this, the TikTok ban included in this aid package. Like, how the hell does the ban on TikTok make its way into an aid package for Ukraine? Well, that's how Washington works. So the TikTok bill, because Israel doesn't want you to have TikTok, the Israel lobby is pushing very hard to have that banned in the United States. Any idiot knows that it has nothing to do with China. You're a moron if you think that that's the case. That's the cover they're using. It's China spying on Americans. You're an idiot. APEC and the Anti-Defamation League are pushing Congress very, very hard on this.
I apologize that I'm still working on trying to get.
That's okay.
Sure.
We had kind of a major crash, and I'm trying to get this.
Sure. Do we have that sound or not?
This? We can.
Yeah, I'm working on trying to get the next video up.
No worries.
Second.
Okay. Maybe you just set up who this is we're going to hear.
So this is Jonathan Greenblatt, the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League. You know, he's been pushing and pushing and pushing to make sure that we do not have TikTok anymore. That is, of course, any sort of voice that's anti-ethnic cleansing, that's wanting to shine a light on what's been happening in Gaza. You can't have that. You cannot have any awareness about the genocide there. You can't talk about it. You can't talk about the mass graves. You can't talk about it. And Jonathan Greenblatt, of course, big proponent of getting rid of TikTok, and they have been pushing this big time.
But we need to talk about TikTok. TikTok, if you will, it is the 24/7 news channel of so many of our young people, and it's like Al Jazeera on steroids, amplifying and intensifying the anti-Semitism and the anti-Zionism with no repercussions.
Yeah, no repercussions, except here's the repercussions. We're gonna kill it. We're gonna ban it.
But it's my First Amendment right to be anti-Zionist. That's not against the law.
It is. Well, in the United States, it is. It is now in the United States to be that way. It's really interesting because the only members of Congress who voted against this bill in the House didn't receive large amounts of money from Israel, which is kind of crazy, don't you think? Don't you find it fascinating and very curious that all of those who voted for this are happy to support Israel in any way that they can?
Or painfully obvious, yes.
Yeah, they receive a boatload of money from the Israel lobby. And then they vote for the TikTok ban. And then this was added to the shameful bill. It's like, it's crazy how this happens, isn't it? They think you're stupid. I mean, they think Americans are stupid.
this is the strongest argument for separation of religion and state. You know, like read the quote underneath the bottom. Blessed are those who, what does it say on the bottom of that image?
Blessed are those who bless Israel. Welcome to Israel.
Yeah.
When they arrive, like, take a picture with the sign. So we've got you, you know, we've got you here. And so, yeah, they shoved this TikTok ban into this bill because they know that Congress is going to, the brilliance of this is that they know that Congress is going to pass all of this additional money for Israel. So how do we get the TikTok bill passed? We shove it in this. We don't do it as a standalone, because if it's a standalone, it would likely fail. But when you shove it in here, no way. So meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal did a deep dive into this giant pile of garbage, this bill that came to pass, and they confirmed our worst suspicions about Donald Trump. It turns out deeply connected to this bill, and it's the only way that it passed. So again, I don't care where you come down on Donald Trump. I mean, again, I remind you that both of these parties, it's a uniparty, and they're both corrupt. So the idea is simple here, that we're going to loan. So the idea that Donald Trump put forward, apparently, according to the Wall Street Journal here, is that it was simply a loan to Ukraine. That's how they were able to get this through. They're going to push this as a loan to Ukraine. And the Wall Street Journal points out that Donald Trump was instrumental in this. They'll pay it back, though. Don't worry. They're going to pay back the loan with one small caveat. Ukraine has to win the war in order to repay the loan. You can't make this up. This is literally in the legislation. Here it is, the Wall Street Journal. A group of senators, including Senator Lindsey Graham, Kevin Cramer, and Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma, held joint phone calls, first among themselves to strategize and then with President Trump, after he floated first the idea of making Ukraine aid into a loan. Ukraine, Trump, and the senators discussed is rich with minerals and has the potential of being a rich country able to pay back its debts, people familiar with the discussion said. Payback is contingent on defeating Russia, since most of those resources are in occupied territories. So let me get this right.
Wait. It's not Ukraine that's rich in these minerals. It's the Donbas region, which is why anyone who's been studying Ukraine for the last 30 years realizes that the leaders have been terrified of losing those regions, not because they hate the ethnic Russians so much that live there, which they do, but because of all the mining that happens in those regions. So it is no longer Ukraine that's rich in those regions, rich in those minerals. That's Russia now. So they have to recapture that land, get all that natural resources, and then, so that's how the United States will capture those things. That's a racket.
Can I do this with like a home loan? Like, can I take out a home loan, borrow like $500,000 on the contingency that I get promoted at work before I start paying you back?
Or that like, I'm going to rob it from my neighbor. Yeah. It's even worse. It's like, I don't have it, but my neighbor has it. I'm going to go attack him. I'm pretty sure, because I'm good at Krav Maga, that I'm going to win. And so can I have the loan on the assumption that I will wrestle it out of his control? That's basically what this is.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know any Krav Maga. I'm just saying.
In other words, the only way this loan is repaid is by Ukraine defeating Russia. Polish President Duda was also in town, met with President Trump, who was there apparently doing the bidding of NATO, trying to make sure and convince Trump to support this bill. Here's the Wall Street Journal. And again, journalist Michael Tracy pointing out some of these key points here. Duda, in an interview ahead of his meeting, expressed confidence that the Ukraine bill would pass. In a social media post the next day, Trump backed the idea that Ukraine's security is a U.S. national security interest. So
wrong.
Wrong.
I'm going to give you one of those, President Trump. Wrong.
I mean, I don't understand how that. So Duda's telling him that this is a national security interest. Trump is backing this idea that Ukraine's security is a U.S. national security interest. Okay. So if you thought that Trump was like Jesus sitting there on high, ready to come in and sort of save everyone, you need to get your head examined right now, because this uniparty is controlling things. So is President Trump going to be the head of the uniparty?
It sounds like you may not be voting for peace if you
and also
that way.
like everybody's like, well, but Trump started no wars. Well, he just supported a major one, potentially.
Yeah. And by the way, the idea that, yes, Trump did not start any wars or I guess expand them, but continued them. I mean, continued drone strikes. It's not like he came in, he's like, you know what, we're ending all foreign wars. We're shutting it all down. No, that's not at all what happened. So remember, these guys, something happens to them with the Pentagon and the military industrial complex and the relationship that they have with the Israel lobby, that somehow, I don't know what dirt they get on these guys, what they have them behind closed doors, what they're doing. How in the world does Mike Johnson go from not supporting it, saying that the border is the most important thing in the United States, to now sending $100 billion to Ukraine and Israel? How does this happen? And the idea that this is in our U.S. national security interest and that this is supporting democracy, NBC News with their interview with Zelenskyy even labels the interview, Americans are not funding war in Ukraine, they're protecting freedom. That's right, we're protecting freedom. Somehow Ukraine suddenly became a freedom-loving country and democracy. When did that happen? So
it's not the freedom of Ukrainians.
Oh, okay.
That's at stake. That's long gone. Has been.
So after the House vote, Zelenskyy was filmed being handed a copy of the members of Congress who voted for the $61 billion.
Hello, sir. Bill Keating from Massachusetts. Good to see you. And I have something that you're really going to like.
Yeah.
This is the official tally of the vote.
Yes, I see.
For the supplemental aid.
Yes.
And look at that vote. 73%.
Yes. Thank you so much. 73.
That's a good vote.
Good, very good. Thank you very much.
I mean,
cool.
What the hell did I just watch?
That?
I mean, what the hell? You have a member of Congress literally handing a list of members of Congress who voted in favor of the bill. Like, here's a list of everyone who just voted for you. 73% passed overwhelmingly to send you $61 billion. And he's like, and he like plays to the camera. Do you see that part?
This is a souvenir for you.
I'm sorry, Philip. I know it's a pain in the ass tonight with the crash that we had here on the. Can you replay that soundbite? I don't know if you can or not. It's a pain in the ass if you can't.
Hello, sir. Bill Keating from Massachusetts. Good to see you. And I have something that you're really going to like.
Yeah.
This is
get the camera over here. Get
the official tally of the vote.
Yes, I see.
For the supplemental aid.
Yes.
And look at that vote. 73%.
Yes. Thank you so much. 73.
That's a good vote.
Good, very good. Thank you very much.
I've seen fire, and I've seen rain, James Taylor.
Yeah.
That's saying 73% of the Congress are okay with stealing Americans' money and giving it to you. We're okay with stealing everybody's money. People that don't support this, the majority of people do not support sending them money, but 73% of the people or of the Congress are like, we don't care. We'll steal their money anyway. Here you go.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
I just like how spontaneous that was with the multiple camera shots and
the
everything.
laminated document. Yeah. I mean,
exactly. Yeah. It's
who
so
carries a
spontaneous
laminator besides me?
Dinesh D'Souza, friend of the show, says, why does Zelenskyy need the list of members of Congress who voted for $61 billion payment to Ukraine? What could he possibly do with this information? Where's the list?
Well, it's public on congress.gov. But
I know, but
why does he need a laminated version to put up in his office? And you know this is not it. Last year, Joe Biden told us that the package that they passed in the winter of 2023 was probably the last. This is it. We're not going to do any more. Well, that was clearly a lie. This is not the last. They're going to try again because we're going to go through. Russia's going to destroy all these weapons. And then they're going to be out of money again. And we're going to hear this again. So, you know, he's not even going to remember if he lives to an old age what the hell that document is. Which time was this that we took aid from the United States? When was this?
It's disgusting. And you know what? I hope reporters ask Donald Trump some tough questions about this. I mean, I hope they don't just give him a pass on this. I hope conservative people who've been big supporters of Donald Trump. I mean, look, nobody's perfect, right? If you think that Donald Trump is perfect, you know, well, I'm sorry that that's not the case. This is a major mistake. I don't know how in the world President Trump could be supporting a bill like this. And when America is crumbling right now, I cannot wrap my head around it. And I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Trying to read the tea leaves on this, I can't figure it out. Meanwhile, though, you have Poland. So you had the Polish president fly in to meet with Trump and also Biden. But he flies in, and you now have, well, first of all, you have the Polish president, Duda, expressing his willingness to host nuclear weapons inside of Poland. And he says, I quote, "I must admit that when asked about hosting nuclear weapons, I declared our readiness. And recently, Russia has been relocating its nuclear weapons to Belarus. If our allies decide to deploy nuclear weapons as part of a nuclear sharing also onto our territory to strengthen the security of NATO's eastern flank, we are ready for it." So people are freaking out about this. And Polish individuals I'm talking about, speaking with, are flipping out about this as well. Wait a minute, you're going to bring American nuclear weapons into Poland? Duda went on to say that he expects some but not universal access to these weapons. So like, we will have them here in Poland and we assume that we will get access to them. So like, you're going to give them to us to use if we need to. I mean, and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk also called the proposal absolutely massive for Poland. So this is what's happening. We're going to move nuclear weapons to Poland. We're going to send another $61 billion to Ukraine, and we're doubling down now on a major move against Russia. And it's now totally in our national security interest to make sure that Ukraine is shored up. Does that sound like Vietnam to anybody? Does it sound like any other incursion does it sound like Iraq to anybody? Does it sound like Afghanistan to anybody? What sort of a boondoggle we're going to be involved with for the next, 5 years, 10 years?
Yes. It sounds like all of those things, reminiscent of all the hits. Thank you, Clayton. Your segment has succeeded in pissing me off substantially
that wasn't
more
my
than
goal.
when we started.
But you have a Senate right now. I mean, call your senators. They're literally debating this right now on the floor of the Senate. Listen to Senator Mike Lee. We can stop this. We can stop this insanity right now. I mean, go on Truth Social and let President Trump know. Let the whole group of them know that we don't support this. Here's a super chat from Roman. It says Ukrainian soldiers are abandoning their positions in the field of battle. Who is going to use these new weapons? I don't know. They're going to be destroyed. The point is they're going to be destroyed. Russia's already told us they're going to destroy them. See, the weird thing about Russia is, and I've never been to Russia and I don't really care, but they've told us what they're going to do and they do it. They told us, I'm going to go back to the beginning here. Putin today says we are going to attack with severity, the likes of which and an intensity, the likes of which you haven't seen before. If these weapons arrive, as soon as they're here, we're going to destroy them.
You know why we know that's true? Because it's already happened.
Right, there's nothing
to all
left.
the ones that we already sent. So why would we think that that's not absolutely going to happen to the ones we're going to send now? Unless we're going to hide them in Poland.
We've just been sold out. I mean, we've been sold out by these politicians. I think, we need a third party. We need strong third, fourth, fifth parties right now in the United States because they're all criminal. They're all criminal. This uniparty that we have running Washington right now is all criminal. And
it's sad to know that less than 30% are on our side. I mean, that just shows like less than 30% care about what we want.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those that haven't been bought and paid for. You have like brave individuals like Congressman Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and, Senator Mike Lee, Senator Rand Paul, those individuals. And I can go on with a few more, but that's about it. Chip Roy.
You could fit them in a dinner party at a Thanksgiving table.
Yeah. You could. What's the name of that large Italian place that has the big long table?
Buca di Beppo?
Yeah, you could take them to a Buca di Beppo. They would fit at a table at Buca di Beppo and get meatballs.
You could share a Lazy Susan.
God.
All of them.
Anyway.
All right. Well,
we got more news to get here.
Yeah, most of it's about war, but we do have one about Princess Kate, and that might be, we'll call it a palate cleanser, even though it's still kind of a nefarious globalist story. It will at least give us a break from all of this because we're going to talk about whether or not ISIS has super soldiers. Is it Syria that's making these drugged up zombie soldiers, Hulk-like, scary, post-apocalyptic, or is it something else? Most likely, you watch this show. Most likely you're being sold something to support war.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
why?
kind of the whole point of Redacted is unpacking the lies we're told to sell violence.
You're seeing all of these stories over the past few weeks saying that Syria is a narco-state. You know, the only way to stop it, we should put more U.S. sanctions and more U.S. troops into Syria. Really? Like, it's weird how all of the media is sort of collaborating around this narco-state narrative right now out of Syria.
Yes, and then we'll talk about Princess Kate, and then we're going to end up talking about a new report showing that the Pentagon has conveniently lost over a year's worth of records on crimes on civilians in the Middle East, perpetrated by the United States militaries. Oops. And we don't track that, so we're not really all that interested in stopping it. Well, what happens then when we continue to attack civilians? We get terrorist attacks, retaliation on our shores. Also, it makes our soldiers unsafe. So we're going to talk about this new report, what can be done about it, all of that and more. But first,
you need a good night's sleep. I need a good night's sleep. I had a massive headache all day today. I need a good night's sleep tonight. And that's where our friends over at GhostBed come in. If you're thinking about getting a new mattress right now, you can use our code and get 50% off. 50% off one of the best beds you will ever buy. Ghostbed.com/redacted. They have high quality, super comfortable, award-winning mattresses built in the United States and Canada. Did you know that 60% of U.S. adults report being too hot when they're trying to sleep? That's me. And then that's why they design all of their products with cooling features. So you sleep so nicely. It's great. You stay comfortable and asleep all night. And you can pair any of the mattresses with GhostBed's award-winning adjustable base, and you get the ultimate sleep experience. It's a family-owned business, United States and sleep experts with 20 plus years experience. 60,000 five-star reviews. 60,000 five-star reviews. They have this patented cooling technology, which is amazing. And I'm telling you what, the GhostBed pillow is my favorite pillow I've ever used. And it's cool. It's nice. You don't have to flip the pillow over to get the cooler side of the pillow. I love my GhostBed pillow. You can try it. Also, for 101 nights at home, sleep trial on all your mattresses and pillows. Right now, free shipping and returns on mattresses. Most products ship within 24 hours. And they have in-house customer support that's in Florida. So it's not some company off in India somewhere. They're right there in Florida. So right now, I want you to check them out, and I want you to try their comfort guarantee. 101 night sleep trial. You can try it risk-free and experience the difference for yourself. Plus, they're offering free shipping on most items within 24 hours. Visit ghostbed.com/redacted to save 50% off. Once again, ghostbed.com/redacted. Well, is Syria a narco state that needs to be invaded and occupied and sanctioned by Western countries like the United States and Great Britain? Well, if you read mainstream corporate media, of course, you'd think that that's the case. Here's the BBC. Syria's economy built on drugs. Here's the Sun. ISIS terrorists taking superhuman drugs that make them charge at tanks. So now ISIS are super soldiers. Or my favorite, it's great liberal magazine, The Economist, which might actually be worse than the BBC if that's possible. Here's The Economist headline: Syria has become a narco state. So we wanted to ask Vanessa Beeley, who knows all about this. She joins us from Damascus, Syria right now, and her reporting has been second to none on this, and asks the question in a recent Substack article, Vanessa, that you wrote: the BBC appears to work in lockstep with the United States and the UK deep state to facilitate new raft of sanctions against Syria. So we thought we'd ask you what actually is going on here. Has Syria descended into a narco state that needs the United States to invade it to save you?
Yeah, I mean, this is quite extraordinary. It's multi-layered, of course, as all of this is. Trial by the BBC. The BBC documentary is basically the report that much of this information is based on. And the BBC documentary, which was put out, I think, about a year ago, was effectively in collaboration with a media outlet, OCCRP, which of course is funded by the UK Foreign Office, by NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, by USAID. They worked in collaboration with two media outlets in southern Syria, where of course we have this Israeli, US, UK-backed separatist movement. happening right now for some time. And those media outlets are backed respectively by Qatar and Saudi Arabia. So you had a real conglomeration of entities that have, in effect, tried to secure regime change in Syria since 2011, failed. And so what is happening is we're having raft after raft of sanctions to collectively punish the Syrian people. Because, of course, we know that sanctions are always designed to do that, to effectively increase the unrest and the displeasure with whichever government is being targeted for removal by the West. But I think we also have to look closely at who was behind these bills. First of all, the anti-normalization with President Assad, and now the Pentagon Act, which again is claiming, as you said, Syria is a failed state, a narco-state. Assad's family is basically running this drug cartel inside Syria. And the incredible claim by the BBC that has then been disseminated throughout legacy media that Syria is making around 57 billion from the Pentagon market. Well, if you bear in mind that Jordan's entire GDP is less than 50 billion, and in 2021, the claim was that the Pentagon market in Syria was worth around 5.7 billion. So did they just move the decimal point?
Right.
Basically, right? But let's have a look, if we can, really quickly at who's behind this bill, because I think that's really important for people to understand why this is happening. Of course, as I said, it's a long line of unprecedented sanctions that have been designed to collectively punish the Syrian people, and it's working. But one of the sponsors of this bill was a congressman called French Hill. French Hill has created a kind of a law conglomeration called Peace Through Strength in the 21st Century. I'll leave you to comment on that title of it. Now, this includes rebuilding economic prosperity for Ukrainians that I would argue is a de facto narco-state, thanks to Western money laundering and enablement and facilitation of the drug trade inside Ukraine. Holding Iranian leaders accountable, number two, and number three, suppressing the illegal Pentagon trade. And these laws are designed, pushed through and accelerated by Zionist-backed American-based Syrian lobbyists, like in this case, the American Coalition for Syria. So they were voted through the House of Representatives, 364, 58 against, in order to put sanctions against offenders. But who are the offenders? This is the important question. According to the BBC, it's President Assad and his cohorts inside Syria. According to Syrians, these drugs were coming into Syria as far back as 2011, 2012. Captagon, which is phenethylene, which is basically a form of amphetamine, it inhibits the adrenaline inhibitor in the body.
Like an ecstasy.
Your adrenaline keeps pumping. There's no cutoff point. So you do literally create these superhuman soldiers. And I mean, I have multiple kind of testimonies about, the ISIS and Al-Qaeda fighters being literally pumped full of bullets and still standing, still fighting, still coming forward, etc.
Wow.
Quite incredible from both Lebanon and inside Syria, from around 2013.
The adrenaline just keeps pumping, so their bodies just keep moving, whether or not their brain is even really functioning. They're shot full of, so ISIS, Al-Qaeda, using this to just run right towards tanks.
And of course, it was used to give to suicide bombers. So particularly the Saudi-backed Wahhabi elements, like ISIS, but also various offshoots of ISIS and Al-Qaeda.
Now they're claiming,
were given this drug.
And they're claiming that this is Assad, that this is the Assad regime that's providing ISIS and Al-Qaeda fighters with this Captagon, this ecstasy-like adrenaline pumping to create these ISIS superheroes, basically. But that couldn't be further from the truth, right?
I mean, this is ridiculous. This is like the chemical weapons claims. And actually, in the article that you sent me, it's put into context with the claims of sarin attacks by the Syrian government, which of course have been absolutely debunked by various experts, including the OPCW inspectors themselves, the dissident inspectors. And so for me, you know, this is the same dilemma. Is Assad going to be producing the drugs that are then sold to the terrorists that are killing his people? In the same way, is Assad going to be using sarin gas, his stocks of which were destroyed in 2013-14 in agreement with the UN and Russia, but is he going to be using sarin gas against his own people as his army is advancing to liberate those people? You know, it's the same ridiculous argument. And if we come back to French Hill, let's see his involvement in Syria itself. So he's responsible for the Pentagon Act. He's responsible for the anti-normalization with President Assad Act, which is designed to prevent, to basically further politically and economically isolate Syria, right, from potential allies in the region that might come to the help of Syria to help it rebuild after 12 years war. But this is a congressman who also came to Syria in August 2023, entered illegally, just like John McCain did in 2013 with the Syrian Emergency Task Force, and met with and fraternized with Al-Qaeda in the Northwest and their affiliates in the White Helmets. He also supported the separatist movement in the South and allegedly had phone conversations with the leaders of the separatist movement, which, as I've mentioned, is backed by the US and Israel in order to secure southern Syria under a separatist regime, similar to what they've done in the Northeast, using the Kurdish Contras to basically create what they call an autonomous region. So this is not someone whose, let's say, credibility is not compromised, because he has clear skin in the game, right?
Well, you got to give him credit. I mean, he just wanted to go and see where his money was going, right? The funding of Al-Qaeda. So U.S. money going to fund Al-Qaeda and ISIS for years. So he wants to go see, is his money doing its job to foment a revolution inside of Syria, and to use that money to, of course, try to overthrow Assad. It's all part of the plan. So, I mean, what is happening to the Syrian people? I mean, this is at the heart of all of it, right? These sanctions have just been absolutely crushing to the Syrian people. It was, as we've talked about here on this show extensively, one of the safest countries in the world, one of the most beautiful countries in the world. And when I say that, I see comments from our viewers. They're like, yep, you're absolutely right about that. Safe, 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 beautiful. And then we come in and destroy it and place sanctions and try to upend this apple cart. So how are the Syrian people dealing with these sanctions and now the potential for this new raft of sanctions?
Well, I think it's also important to note that pre-2011, Syria was pretty much drug-free. It was something that was, you know, very much frowned upon by the Syrian government, and there was crackdown on any drug supply inside Syria, and it was pretty much drug-free. Since the start of the regime change war in 2011, I mean, I've spoken with the head of the psychiatric hospital in East Aleppo that was occupied by the Western-backed terrorists, including Al-Qaeda, and he told me after liberation in December 2016, the biggest issue that they were dealing with was drug addiction, which was something that they never had before the Western armed groups came in and occupied, you know, districts of Aleppo, both in the west and in the east. And if you remember, after the US invaded Afghanistan was when we saw the opium trade increase exponentially. Right. Under the Taliban, there was no opium trade. And who is the biggest user of opioids in the world today? It's the United States. The United States economy benefits from, what is it, around 500 billion from the drug trade globally. And if we go back to Nixon's, because I was reading up on that this morning, you know, in 1971, he started the war on drugs. Well, very much like the war on terror, what's happened since the war on drugs, drug abuse globally has increased exponentially. following the war on terror, terrorism globally has increased, backed by the US and the UK and the EU cartel and the Gulf states and Israel and so on.
Well,
Sorry,
we love
you mentioned about the Syrian people, but
but we love our wars on things, right? Whenever the United States launches a war on, war on climate change, whatever it is, right? You know that there's going to be billions of dollars funneled into that effort, and it's only going to get worse, of course. And some people are going to get very, very rich off of it, which is exactly what's happened with this trying to go after. I love looking at all the headlines. You can see all of the narco states that we've created around the world, right? We use this as sort of like a Trojan horse. Now Syria is a narco state. How'd that happen? Oh, well, because we flooded the country with illegal drugs and allowed that to happen with ISIS and Al-Qaeda fighters coming. So we do that in all these other countries, and then we use that as justification to go in with our military or paramilitary and try to stop it. We're trying to stop the illegal flow of drugs from your country. Oh, really? So this is how this happens. So now the Syrian people have to live with this as a reality every day. Not only the drugs on the streets, but then American forces in their country and the inability to get cheap medicines and electricity. I mean, oil and everything else that we steal from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an interesting history of this drug. It was developed in the 60s in Germany. It was then basically banned in most countries because of its psychotic effects in 1986. But then production began on a kind of counterfeit Captagon in Bulgaria. And from 2000 onwards, it was Turkish and Balkan cartels that were smuggling it into the Arab Peninsula. So this is a European problem also. As far as I know, also there is still illegitimate production in the Netherlands, for example. And what is also interesting is the claim quite recently by Jordan is that there's over 160 manufacturing sites in southern Syria. Now, when I'm talking about manufacturing sites, they can literally be someone's shed, attached to their house. And Jordan has, I think, bombed the southern Syrian territory 3 times, claiming that it's destroying these drug manufacturing sites. But if you look at the positioning of these so-called manufacturing sites in southern Syria, it's in areas which are effectively still largely under the control of Western-backed armed groups and agents, right? So who is fostering this production if it is actually going on inside southern Syria, where right now Israel and the West is fomenting separatism and violence against the state, right? So, I just find this whole thing so absolutely heinous what they're doing, because it's what they did to Latin American countries, declare them narco-states under the war on drugs, isolate them politically and economically, right, to bring them to their knees. And this has been the process since 2012, to isolate Syria, to steal its resources, to make claims against the Syrian government and effectively against the Syrian people, and to punish them for claims that are not proven and are disproven in the case of the chemical weapons claims. And the Captagon claims are generated by the BBC and by the UK Foreign Office and by NED and USAID.
I mean, this is why it's so important to have great independent journalists like yourself on this show to be able to shine a light on this, because the BBC has a very loud bullhorn, and then all of these other media organizations run with those claims. Well, according to the BBC, this is what's happening inside of Syria. And this is justification for an invasion, for sanctions against the Syrian people. And most Americans just kind of go along with their day. They don't understand what's going on. They hear these reports. Well, I hear it's a narco state. And this is why we have to have justification for this to go into these countries. So thank you so much, Vanessa, for your amazing reporting on this. And by the way, I just want to say, independent journalists are few and far between, and Vanessa is one of the greatest journalists in the world. And if you want to support independent journalism, Vanessa has a great Substack. It's just beeley.substack.com, just her last name, .substack.com. And for $5 a month, you can go over or just choose a subscription plan if you want to support independent journalism. Instead of giving that money to the New York Times or other places, this is a great place to do it. I'll have a link in the description below. I think we need to stand together and support great journalists like Vanessa exposing these liars. So I know you didn't ask me to do that, but I just want, I want our audience. Vanessa didn't ask me to do that. And she's probably embarrassed that I'm doing it, but please go and support great journalists like Vanessa, and we'll have it linked up in the description. Vanessa, thank you so much for your great reporting and all of this from Syria right now, from Damascus, Syria. And your great writing is fantastic. Thank you, Vanessa.
No, thank you, Clayton, and thank you for always giving us a platform to be able to talk about things that are not talked about in legacy media. So thank you also.
Thanks so much, Vanessa.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
It's harrowing story, and awesome to have someone who has an expert to break through the reporting on that.
Yeah, she's amazing. So again, go to support Vanessa. I mean, she literally has to deal with like the power being off on a regular basis there in Damascus, Syria, like on the front lines, like covering these stories for the world, and an amazing person, amazing journalist. So, you know, she didn't know I was going to do that. I feel strongly about, we see these corporate media tycoons that control everything. Mm-hmm. And I can count the great journalists that I trust on maybe two hands.
At a Buca de Beppo table.
They could all fit at a Buca de Beppo table. Yeah. That's about it. There's so few of them. They're all working for corporate media. They're all, so anyway, Beeley.substack.com if you want to support Vanessa's great work over there. So thanks to Vanessa. All right, we've got more news to get to here on your Tuesday.
We do indeed. We're going to talk about Princess Kate, whether or not the newest photo from the palace assuages, is that the way you say that word? Assuages any anxiety about the safety and truth about the princess. We're also going to talk about the United States government, losing the records of its own war crimes in the Middle East, and how a new report shows that over a year's worth of records are just missing. Why is that? What can we do about it? We have a guest coming up to report on that, and I'm excited about it. But first, we want to tell you about fast-growing trees, because you know that it is the planting season. And did you know that Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the U.S. with more than 10,000 different kinds of plants and over 2 million happy customers in the U.S.? They have everything you could possibly want, like fruit trees, palm trees, evergreens, houseplants, and so much more. Whether you're interested in something new that you haven't grown before, they can help you learn if that will do well in your neighborhood and how to care for those trees, or something just to add to your existing nursery, something to change up your backyard. You can never go wrong with Fast Growing Trees, because they'll give you advice based on where you live, and you'll get a healthy tree. You don't always get that when you go to these box retailers in your neighborhood a lot of times, because those trees are pumped up on drugs, basically like hormones and pesticides and all of that. And then they go into shock when they get into your yard because they're mass produced. So you can get a quality tree that fits in your yard. So right now, head on over to fastgrowingtrees.com/redacted. If you use our code redacted, you get 15% off, and a tree shows up. You don't have to put it in your car and dirty your trunk, and you'll get help choosing one. So again, our code redacted gets you 15% off. Head on over to fastgrowingtrees.com/redacted. Okay. So where is Princess Kate? What the hell are they hiding? Just when you think it couldn't get any weirder, it feels like the palace is trolling us, because we have a new picture from the royal family. But again, it feels like, wait, are they punking us, or do they really expect us to believe that this is all on the up and up? So you decide for yourself. Today is the 6th birthday of the youngest child of Kate and William, Prince Louis. Every year, on the eve of one of their children's birthdays, they post a happy birthday to this young child with a photo of that child. They do it on the eve of the birthday. So yesterday was the eve of this birthday, and people were worried, like, we haven't seen the happy birthday Prince Louis. His birthday's on Tuesday. Where is it? Well, they did, in fact, post an image, and here it is.
Well, only after a lot of people were like, "What? Where is it? Why is it missing?" Like, yes. They're like eagle-eyed observers of this, I mean, even me, who I don't pay attention or give a rat's ass about the royal family, but when I saw this, I was like, this is a continuation of this conspiracy. What the hell is going on here? And so they didn't post the photo, and then until everyone was outraged about it, then they're like, oh, yeah, we better get that photo out there.
Right. It was not until noon today, London time, that we finally got this. So was that just, oh, oops, they forgot? Or did they notice that people had noticed that it was missing? And does this, in fact, calm your suspicions about foul play about the royal family? Well, for me, it does not, because it seems to me that this image was taken on the same day as the Mother's Day image that started this whole chaos. Here is the photo that was posted to the royal family's Instagram on Mother's Day in the UK, and everybody noticed that there were many, many things wrong with this photo. It was clearly edited and photoshopped. So take a look at Louis. He's the youngest on the right, and then let's put them together. So this was supposed to be March 10th, the Mother's Day photo on your right, and then the one on the left is supposed to have been taken in the last few days. Clearly, he's wearing the same shirt. Now, I get it. When my son was 5, he really was obsessed with those cape shirts that you put like Velcro from Old Navy, and they all had a cape on them.
Yeah, Superman.
He would
Batman.
not take it off. He was obsessed with any of those cape shirts. Like, anywhere he was going, need a cape shirt today. Is that his version of a cape shirt? He just really wants to wear this collared shirt.
First of all, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about children. No child ever wants to wear a collared shirt.
Okay.
Ever. I've never met a kid that wants to wear a collared shirt. And it's like, where's my favorite collared shirt, mommy?
Like Sheldon.
Right.
From that.
Right.
Okay. Maybe. But why wouldn't they just give us a different shirt, knowing that we really need proof that this family's okay? Now, here's something that kind of bothers me, but I'm not a dentist. I'm not an expert. I did find myself trying to figure out how fast teeth grow, because my kids seem to grow their teeth in pretty fast. He's missing a tooth in the Mother's Day photo, one of the bottom left teeth, and he's still missing it in the one that was supposedly in the last few days. So has it not grown back at all in the last 6 weeks? Doesn't even seem to be like a little nubbin of it. So I don't know. That's not really something. It might be. The shirt, though, is the thing that I'm just kind of like, are they trolling us? They couldn't give us a fresh shirt so that at least we know that they're all right. Also, it does seem to me, if you zoom in, that he's got a little bit of chapping on one side of his lip, and it's still there. So in both images, it seems like he's chapped a little, kind of like my kids when, the weather's cold, they like to lick their lips, and then you get that chapping on a child. You're going to have to really zoom in. It's probably not showing on your screen, but do they not have any Vaseline at the palace? Like, those things give me pause. Now, palace sources say this is not an edited photo, and it was taken by the princess at her cottage in Windsor in the last couple of days. But again, it was late, and it only came after people noticed it had not come. So maybe it's something or maybe it's nothing. But then at the same time, just today, hours later, the king announced that he is giving Kate Middleton, the princess, a special honor called the Order of the Companions of Honor. The Daily Mail says this is the first time that a member of the royal family has been appointed for this hibbity-ho, whatever highfalutin award that you and I are probably not eligible for. And I didn't bother to look up what it is. William, at the same time, got something called Great Master of the Most Honorable Order of the Bath. It's the grand poobah of the royal, who cares? So the timing feels weird. That's all I'm saying. They say that the king has done this because he is believed to have grown closer to the Prince and Princess of Wales in recent months, because they're both supposedly suffering from illness. Well, maybe. The New York Post is also reporting that the youngest prince will, in fact, get a small private birthday party over the weekend, maybe with just a few friends, again, because reportedly his mother is ill. So what do you think? Does this help you feel that the palace is being straight with us and that Kate Middleton is, in fact, undergoing chemotherapy and treatment for cancer? Or is she otherwise okay and she's just receiving these awards in absentia, but we don't get pictures that are very convincing. It just feels like they continue to tell us stories with so many holes in it. And again, just a reminder of all the things that are strange about this and why we should care. It's not just palace intrigue, although I very much enjoy watching Kate Middleton wear the prettiest clothes that money can buy. I readily admit that. But again, they are a taxpayer-funded institution. They are aligned with globalist entities, specifically World Economic Forum and that agenda. And they have not explained any of the following. For instance, why did they throw Kate Middleton under the bus pretending that she was just badly photoshopping that photo? Clearly, that's not the case. She didn't do that. If they are telling the truth, she was suffering cancer, and then they threw her under the bus for badly editing a photo that caused chaos. We never got an explanation about that. Where were the children? Why didn't they and her parents visit Kate Middleton in the hospital? There was no records of that ever happening. They have not been seen in public since. We've only had images. Why did we get confirmation that her medical records were in fact compromised? Recall there was a rumor from a Spanish blogger who said that someone in the hospital told her that Kate Middleton had been put in an induced coma. And then it was confirmed that those medical records were compromised. So was that actually the case? We never got an answer on that. And why did the palace, right after her surgery, say, nope, wasn't cancer? They confirmed, in fact, while she was still in the hospital, she does not have cancer. And then again, why do we have no explanation for all the terrible doppelgangers that we were shown? Recall these ladies, the one on the bottom left was seen in a car with her mom. The one on the bottom right was seen walking in a farm shop with William. It was never, the one on the top is the one that did the video saying that she had cancer. These are not the same three women. So I remain convinced that the palace is hiding something. It just seems like it's tragic and that the children may not be okay. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think we'll see this royal family in public ever again altogether. That's my gut feeling on it. It does feel like they did something nefarious. I hope they are held to account. I don't believe them. I don't trust them. Let us know if you agree. Are they trolling us? Are they lying to us? What do you think? Let us know.
I will say that a couple of viewers sent me, I know this might seem really out there, but hey, we have out there conversations on this show quite a bit. But a couple of viewers sent me a video. You guys know who you are. And it's of a person, a psychic medium.
Oh, yes.
And not even, she's a remote viewer.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, the CIA still uses remote viewing. You can read a whole bunch of books on remote viewing. The CIA actively uses it to target and surveil targets. They use it all the time, actually. And she is a very proficient remote viewer. And so she did a remote viewing of what's going on. And it was crazy. Like, I mean, you can seek it out yourself. I don't have her name off the top of my head. I watched about 2 months ago. I apologize. Maybe tomorrow, if I could find it, I'll share it here on the show. Sure. But it was really stunning. And she like tapped into it. She went through this whole process and she's like, I saw some really dark things. I was like, I was sitting there, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, but you guys sent it to me. You guys watching right now sent it to me. So, really fascinating.
Well, I mean, I know a lot of people, I can see in the chat saying, we don't care about the royal family.
I don't either.
You should care about the royal family because they push an agenda on the government, even though they are not supposed to. And they take up taxpayer. Yes, they are globalists.
They are global. They're unelected globalists.
And they scoop up taxpayer money for a reason.
It's the same way you should care about the World Economic Forum, right? Yes. And by the way, when you realize the relationship between the WEF and the royal family, that's the only reason I give a rat's ass about them.
Right. And also, I'm very curious why the media just takes what the royal family says as gospel and lacks curiosity for these facts, such as, why did we get 3 different doppelgangers? Why did they lie about her cancer when they knew that it was cancer? Why? So many questions, and the media just going along with it. I've seen, the coverage of this story. Like, there's little Louis. He's fine. That's definitely him. Does no one else realize that's the same shirt? Like, does that not seem like a deliberate ploy? I just don't understand it. And if it's the most obvious answer that they don't have pictures of this family since maybe last year together, where the heck are they? That seems like that's possibly bad news. So don't pretend you don't care. You care. And you're here for it. And we're going to figure this out together.
People saying it's the lizard family. The lizard's going to lizard.
Exactly.
Lizards, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I wish I could find this YouTuber.
And I love the way that, so many of like the guys here are like, we don't really care. But yeah, that's interesting. It reminds me of that scene in Tommy Boy where they don't want to change the station and it's the Carpenters.
Yeah.
They're like, I can handle it if you can.
Start singing it.
And they're all singing along.
Yeah.
You care about Kate Middleton.
Well, no, I mean, to me, it's fascinating, right? I mean, in the same way that I care about like what the hell happened on 9/11, on the cover up there and, the controlled demolition of the towers. Like, I want to know about how that was coordinated and brought down and why those things were covered up and what's been kept from us. I want to know about the dancing Israelis who were there filming the collapse of the towers and were Mossad agents. And they were there. They told on to the FBI that they were there to document it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So you guys were there ahead of time to film it ahead of time. I think I'd like to know that. I'd also like to know, like, where the hell is Kate Middleton? I'd like to know these things when these powerful elites tell us what to think and what to do. And they're just like, move along, little people. The Francis Scott Key Bridge. Yeah, nothing to see here. But in 20 days later, the FBI then starts to investigate it as a cyber attack. So, just go along with what they say. Just listen to what they say, these elites. All right, we've got more news to get to here in a moment. We're going to talk, though, about, we are going to talk about, sorry, I'm still trying to scroll through here.
Well, we're going to talk about what the Pentagon is hiding in just a minute, why the Pentagon cannot find years and years of records of all the war crimes perpetrated in the Middle East by the United States, and why they just say, well, we don't really have a system for capturing that. Is there something we can do about it? What can we learn about these reports? We're going to get to that in just a minute, but first, it is common knowledge that Google is listening through your microphones. Even the most anti-conspiracy theory people know that this is true. But did you know that Google put hidden microphones in their Google Nest device? That's right. And people didn't find out until 2 years after the device was released. So you have a Google Nest in your home and it's been listening the whole time. Or that Google keeps your voice recordings and stores them for posterity. If hidden microphones, voice recordings are not enough, what about the fact that they track Android phone locations? Even your location services are turned off and you don't have a SIM card in your phone. They still track it. I really recently listened to a privacy class that Glenn Metter held. And he said that Google even has a tracking code placed into the fonts that websites use. So they want to gather as much information as they possibly can. It's their business, right? And they don't just use that information to sell dog toys or cruises to Italy. They do it because they are working together with Big Brother. They always have, they always will. Google's origins, of course, come from the CIA and the NSA research grants that they got. They wanted to fund Google in order to create a surveillance state. They call the operation birds of a feather, like the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. They were talking about how geese and other birds fly in large, predictable shapes. The CIA, the NSA predicted that people who shared interests and beliefs online would also move in predictable patterns. They just needed a tool that could gather all of that information to form these predictions. It's scary and it's overwhelming actually to think about, but that's not why I'm talking about this. I'm tired of reading articles about how the world is going to end and there's nothing we can do about it. That's why I asked Glenn about what steps we can take to get Google out of our lives. And he actually had some great suggestions. He said that it is possible to de-Google your life. He even wrote an ebook on the topic. And so he decided he would love to give us this book for free, totally for free. And you guys can grab your de-Google copy, your de-Google your life document right now by just going to privacyacademy.com/redacted. You can de-Google your life, privacyacademy.com/redacted. I highly recommend you check it out because everyone should get away from Google, take their online privacy more seriously. Privacyacademy.com/redacted to go get that free ebook right now. And you're going to be stunned at the location tracking information that they have and what voice recordings they have of you on file. Go and check it out right now. Privacyacademy.com/redacted. The Pentagon is destroying evidence of its own war crimes. This was reported by the Lever reporter Freddie Brewster, who joins us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
First time redacted guest, hopefully not the last. So here's what your story shows is that you found declassified versions of government reports showing that an entire year's worth of records regarding operations in the Middle East and Africa were missing, mostly during the Obama years, which I think most people don't know were some of the bloodiest years that the U.S. enacted on the Middle East due to Obama's, this is me saying this, murderous foreign policy. So what can you tell us about what you saw in these documents?
Yeah, so this comes from a declassified version of a Government Accountability Office report that dug into these war crime allegations from 2012 to 2022. And one of the more alarming things it found was that there were no war crime allegation reports for all of 2015 for a sub-command center overseeing Iraq and Syria. And, this is when the Obama administration oversaw thousands of airstrikes in the country and when during the height of some of the fighting in Syria as well. There were also records missing for 2017 for all of CENTCOM, which oversees operations in the Middle East. And this coincides with a time that Amnesty International accused pro-Iraqi government forces and U.S.-backed forces of potentially committing war crimes in that area. So, pretty alarming stuff right from the government's own little investigative research arm that is there to hold some of the agencies and Congress accountable.
Is the agency you're talking about the Government Accountability Office, the GAO?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so one of the things that they say is, well, there's just no comprehensive way to retain such reports, as in we don't have a protocol. So what do you think that means? Is just, oh, when we do bad things, we can't track it. There's no way to track it because we have reports on other crimes, such as you mentioned the 2019 bombing in Syria that killed more than 60 civilians. How do they square that?
Yeah, so what the Government Accountability Office found is in the Government Accountability Office is really it's its own separate entity. And all it does is just do investigations and, reports looking into a wide variety of issues, everything from Department of Defense, war crime allegations to how's the economy doing and what's credit card debt like. So they cover a wide range of things. And the key thing they found in this is that there's just no comprehensive way that the Department of Defense tracks these. They found that it's kind of like a hodgepodge mix that's left to the 6 different command centers that are stationed across the world. And at times, even those command centers, they leave these allegation reportings to be left to its own sub-command centers that we just mentioned in 2015, the sub-command center overseeing Iraq and Syria. So it's really just like a hodgepodge way of tracking these and no sort of centralized way to, bring these things together.
But wouldn't an after-action report suffice for something like this? Do they think that it's just, oops, these slipped through the cracks, or were records destroyed?
They didn't say records were destroyed. They just said there was a lack of a comprehensive system. But, this stuff is alarming regardless. It's a lack of a comprehensive system throughout all of the foreign interventions that the United States gets involved in is alarming stuff in and of itself.
Yes, absolutely. And so is it more of an anomaly that we know about the 2019 bombing that killed those civilians in Syria? Because most of the time it's a, oops, stepped on that bug, and then we just move on.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And, it's also, the GAO, those guys also, they didn't really dig into the validity of some of these reports. And they also said that, they found at least 47 documented allegations of potential war crimes that took place during this 10-year time period. But they also said that they're not quite sure if that's the depth of it. They weren't able to dig into the entire universe, as they called it, of potential war crime allegations.
Right. It's reminiscent of a story in Chelsea Manning's own biography where he talks about finding a target, giving his supervisors an address and saying, I'm not quite sure, I think this guy might have moved, check this. And then they bombed the old address anyway. And there's no way for us to ever know that. Civilians were killed and there's no tracking of this. And so not only does this do people wrong, clearly, who live there in a horrific kind of way, but it makes our own soldiers unsafe because then they are seen as these careless murderers overseas, right?
Yeah, it is. It's very alarming, to say the least. And, I interviewed somebody from, they're a human rights expert. And, they had mentioned that, like, the Defense Department gives out extremely limited information on these, war crime allegations. So just the fact that the GAO found 47 potential allegations is in itself, like, a big deal.
Right. Now, in, I think, 2021 or 22, Lloyd Austin promised more accountability for these types of things. Do you think since then, because your report that you saw covered between 2012 and 2022, so since then, do you have any idea or any indication that reporting of this magnitude will get better?
I'm not holding my breath, to be totally honest with you. Another story I published that looked into how the U.S. is tracking the amount of arms it's sending to Ukraine. The GAO office also found that we're doing a horrible job of tracking the end use of all those weapons. I'm not holding my breath on them improving their systems.
Right. So what can we do then to demand more accountability, given that our government is running off a cliff of debt in order to support these foreign wars and not improving on any systems?
Yeah, you can pressure your lawmakers, but even that is, not quite sure how that works because,
right.
The majority of the American public, is against funding to both Israel and Ukraine, and yet those bills just passed the other day. So
right. Well, that's really discouraging, but I really appreciate your reporting. I'm going to suggest that everyone go and read this article on the Lever called "Is the Pentagon Hiding War Crimes?" And maybe you can come back another time and tell us about the report on Ukraine, because it's not a shocker, but at least the more we know about it, the less they're hiding from us. Whether they're going to do anything about it, again, your guess is as good as mine. So it was a pleasure to talk to you about this. Please come back on Redacted another time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
That's going to do it for us today at Redacted. Thanks so much for your attention today. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your participation. And hey, if you'd like to let other people know that you love Redacted, you love non-mainstream media, non-corporate sponsored media, and you love Redacted, you are cantankerous and you are informed, and you are a non-pacifist peace extremist, please check out the Redacted store at redactedstore.com. You can find our oil-loving merchandise so that you can be an antagonist to your neighbors. You can find your I will not comply, your non-pacifist peace extremist merch. That's my favorite slogan because I made it up and I'm taking it to the grave. It's going to be on my gravestone. We don't sell gravestones yet. So hopefully we don't need them for a long time and we succeed in a peaceful world. So again, check it out, redactedstore.com. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you here tomorrow. Same time, same place. Good night.